So we've got a wonderful panel over here, but let me set a little bit of the context. Now, from the bustling streets of Mumbai to the tech hubs of Bengaluru, India stands on the brink of an industrial renaissance. Today we look into the crystal ball of manufacturing and healthcare, where innovation meets tradition, not just Indian solutions for an Indian requirement, but also Indian solutions for the world. So imagine a future where Indian industries not only adapt, but lead globally with green technologies, AI-driven solutions, and a workforce brimming with talent. Join us as we explore in this session how India is poised to redefine manufacturing technology, the services sector, healthcare, in becoming hopefully a beacon of sustainable growth and unparalleled ingenuity. The session is called Disrupting Indian Industry for Good, and we've got an absolutely wonderful group of panelists: Baba Kalyani, Chairperson and Managing Director of Bharat Forge; Sunita Reddy, the Managing Director of Apollo Hospitals, the Apollo Hospitals Group; and Ajay Shriram, the CMD of DCM Shriram. Thank you all very much for being with us. Mr. Kalyani, let me come to you first. A couple of years back, whenever one thought about made in India, it was made in India for India, right? That we need to make our own things, whether it's high-tech products, whether it's defense equipment, but look, we are the consumer. I think the paradigm changing for the good, and this being a disruptor, is the fact that in certain areas, not least of all defense manufacturing, we don't just have to manufacture for India. We manufacture to what anybody anywhere in the world wants. We deliver it at a price point, and we manufacture it at a quality with guarantees which are second to none. Would you say that when we use the words disrupting industry in your sector, that's where India is?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very happy that this panel has come to discuss manufacturing. Well, it's something that nobody seems to want to discuss. And without manufacturing, I don't think India can achieve its Viksit Bharat objectives that Honorable Prime Minister talks about. So I'm very happy to be part of this panel. First of all, I think what you say is very right. If you take our own business, we've been exporting and manufacturing products for almost every automotive OEM in the world for the last 20 years, and critical components, and manufactured in India and selling it in Europe, in North America, in South America, sometimes in Japan, sometimes even in China. So the disruption in manufacturing will start happening now with the advent of all the new technologies that we see coming in. There was a lot of, Mr. Sunil Mittal talked about AI and its use and misuse of AI. Well, let me tell you our experience as far as artificial intelligence is concerned in manufacturing. I mean, the way we see it is going to do three things. Number one, it's going to make a simple guy or an ordinary person become extraordinary because his knowledge level is going to go up suddenly in minutes. You ask 3 questions to ChatGPT AI in any technical issue and you get all the answers. So that's the first advantage that we see, and we see it happening in our plants. So all it means is that your productivity, your efficiency, your quality of product will go up dramatically.
Right.
That's first. The second thing that will happen is, yes, there will be a lot of efficiencies that will come about, especially in terms of management, how you manage. You don't need so many people to manage a business. You need much less people because you can get AI assistant, on your computer screen, which tells you what to do, what not to do. And for Indians, this has become very simple. I don't know, somehow we are very good at understanding a screen and understanding what's written on a screen. The third, the most disruptive part, but the most useful part for any population or any society is going to be the new industries that AI will bring in. And I will, since Sunita is here, I'll talk about in 1 minute on the medical side. The entire biotechnology will become bioengineering with AI. So it will be more engineering-based rather than medicine-based. And I think India will lead that revolution.
Sure.
So a lot of new things will come out.
In fact, Ms. Reddy, I wanted to sort of come to you next. Medical, when we talk about innovation, it's such a huge term. Obviously, AI and innovation. Medical practices have innovation in many ways. One of the things I found fascinating in your group is re-engineering technology which already exists to ensure that you can spread it to people who need it while ensuring that there is no compromise in the quality of the equipment, right? How does that work?
So that's just started to work. And what we've done at Apollo is that we've signed up an agreement with IIT Chennai. And as part of our vision, it is really to re-engineer medical devices, which, at 1/10 of their cost. At Apollo 40 years ago, when we came to India, we really re-engineered the way healthcare was being delivered at 1/10 of the cost with the same clinical outcomes as the rest of the world. I think our next journey is to bring technology and healthcare together and biology together to make sure that we're able to do this, not just in terms of re-engineering medical equipment, but for looking for solutions for new diseases as well as the old, to probably make it more affordable to a large section of not just India's population, but to the world. So today we have patients from 147 countries coming to India. So I think our first goal is we've touched 200 million lives, let's scale it to 500 million using technology, using AI, using chatbots as physicians, and then using drones to deliver medicines across India and handle the coal supply chain as well.
How has the drone business actually worked? Is it
works.
practical?
It is very practical. It works right now. I think Paul Rom, it alluded to the fact that and what we need to do in India is urbanization. We've not done it yet. It has to reach scale. It has to reach villages. The only way to do it is to do it using technology. Part of it is that the penetration of internet has already happened. The second is that enabling the drones, and there's a licensing problem.
Right.
The technology works, we need to get the licenses in place.
Mr. Shriram, if we are talking about India's economy being at an inflection point, there's perhaps no sector in our economy more at an inflection point than agriculture. And we can't talk about manufacturing or health in isolation. Ultimately, we are bedrocked on agriculture. We are an agricultural economy still. And then there are all sorts of ideas about AI and how that might enhance innovation and how that innovation might enhance production. How do you see AI and technology enhancing the agriculture sector, which is a poor sector in so many areas? Can technology really make the jump?
Thank you, and thanks very much for inviting me for this program. I think the topic is very relevant. Disrupting industry for growth, for development is absolutely crucial. Mm-hmm. It's happened over the last hundreds of years. And I think in India too, it's moving rapidly, moving well. And I think it's good to see that now this sort of disruption is happening in all aspects of economic activity, not just manufacturing or medical or some of these restricted. In agriculture, if one sees over a period of time, the way developments are happening with the farmer and the knowledge the farmers are gaining now, the sort of exposure they are getting, one is, I think I must compliment the government for moving so aggressively with the JAM Trinity,
right,
which they did many years ago, which gave a connect to virtually everyone in the country today. I remember we are in the sugar industry. I remember we used to actually give a written note to each farmer, and we have in our sugar factories 2 lakh farmers who supply us sugarcane. We used to give a written note to each farmer requesting him to give the cane on the second day or the third day at a particular time in the morning, afternoon, evening, etc. Today it's all done by WhatsApp. The connectivity has gone up so dramatically, it's made a world of a difference. And then secondly, I think what's coming up very positively is the transfer of technology to the farmer. Today, I'll give another example if I may. We have, as I mentioned, about 2 lakh farmers who supply us sugarcane. Our plant is in eastern UP, in Central East UP, the average yield is about 60 tons, 70 tons per hectare. We have worked with a group of farmers. You will not believe the farmer which got the highest yield and won a national award got 275 tons per hectare.
Wow.
And made a net profit of 6.22 lakhs in 1 hectare because of this approach towards innovation, openness, doing things the right way. Today, what's even moving very aggressively, not only sugar but agri across the board, is where drones are coming in a very extensive manner, where they are actually now even spreading pesticides and fertilizers. We have technology which actually takes images of the crops and gives an indication of what is the quality of the crop, where is it, what is the stage of growth, how healthy is the crop, what is the expected yield of the crop, which can give a feedback to farmers. Another area which is growing rapidly again from the point of view of innovation and moving, which is moved in urban areas more, less in rural, is e-commerce. Today, a lot of our farmers and others farmers, because we are in the agri-inputs business also, we are seeing many of them are buying products of e-commerce. They don't have to go to a shop.
Right.
So developments are happening very rapidly. Though there is a long time to go, we have 14 crore farming families in India, and agriculture is a state subject. So each state has to take it up as aggressively as they think right, how they want to push it. But the good thing is that the interest from the farming community is high. They want to get better development, better growth. For, let's say, sugarcane, for instance, is a crop where industry is, we have a contract with the farmer to buy. The contract model, if it develops further for other crops, I think the farmer will gain because they have an assured offtake at an assured price, and they have a connectivity with someone who gives them technology.
Sure.
So the yields go up. So, it's a win-win across the board.
Absolutely.
If innovation moves aggressively to disrupt the existing way of working of how farmers are generally working.
Mr. Kalyani, when you told engineers in your company, I want a gun, an artillery gun, which outranges every other gun in the world, I want it built at a certain price point, and the Indian Army has the most exacting, bracket the worst, standards of evaluation, almost impossible to achieve. How did they react? And how did you upskill people to actually reach that level of technological prowess? Because you know, people can't just build guns, right?
Yeah, you're very right on what you said. But things like defense technology, doing it all yourself, it requires a lot of passion. It's
and
not
risks. And risks.
And grit, yes, and courage.
Right.
Because it takes a long time. You're right. The whole testing procedure is long. The process is complex. But not only we were able to do it, we outdid it. Yeah. And today, India has never ever even dreamt of exporting artillery guns. Today we export artillery guns. We have the largest capacity to make artillery guns in the world. So we have come a long way as a country, and any country that wants to be economically strong, wants to be amongst the top nations in the world, has to also have a strong military capability. If you look at the United States, it was built during World War II based on producing military hardware for Europe, for England and France, on the famous lease and lend scheme that President Roosevelt generated. It would be outstanding. I mean, if you just hear the figures that they made, in 4 years, the US made 384,000 aircrafts, 200 submarines, 180,000 artillery guns, and many, many more things. I mean, compared to what we are able to do today, compared to what they did almost 80 years ago.
Right.
And that's what built the United States manufacturing, became a superpower. That was the beginning of it. There's a beautiful book written on this by Arthur Henman. But India needs to do the same thing. We have a lot of advantages today because a lot of new technological breakthroughs are coming in, AI being just one of them. There are many more. The whole digital technology is coming in. And no manufacturing company can survive without embracing digital, AI, IoT, and everything new that's coming in terms of technology. Second, I think India has to also create innovation in technology. We can't just copy what we get from outside. We now need to make our products which the Western world will copy from us. That's the name of the game for the next 10 years.
Sure.
If you look at the last 25 years, India's GDP grew by almost 8 times, last 25 years. But its manufacturing also grew only 8 times. And that will not work going forward.
Right.
The GDP will grow 8 times and reach 30 trillion or maybe 35 trillion, whatever number. There's so many numbers floating around. But the manufacturing needs to grow 1.5 times of GDP. So the manufacturing needs to grow 12 times, 12x. And that's not easy because in many areas of manufacturing, you need to generate strategies to create exponential growth. Linear growth won't work. And that's the challenge in front of us. But at the same time, the feeling one gets today when you meet young people who are entering the manufacturing game, young entrepreneurs, they are like athletic Gavaskars.
Young
Okay.
people are like Sunny Gavaskar.
Yes, they are like athletic Gavaskar, the opening batsman, with a lot of confidence, wanting to go in and play, and they feel they can make it happen. Because it's going to be their game. It's not the game of old guys like me. And I'm very confident that India will get to that game.
Ms. Reddy, one of the problems in India, and I think this is true across the board, is a lack of fundamental research at so many levels. Certainly in the healthcare sector, we are wonderful in manufacturing. We are the pharmacy of the world. It's not just a cliche, it's a fact. But then in terms of, but we are wonderful replicators of, for example, medicines and vaccines, which have been designed by others. How do you see India's economic growth being closely linked to research and innovation?
I think we have a long way to go. So if you look at the current situation, 0.7% of our GDP is spent on research. And this has to change. And I'm not sure if the government is ever going to mandate it, but I think the private sector must take on this initiative and have the energy to do so. So, which is why, I earlier spoke about IIT. As we look at research, we also need to think why it's important for India. The Prime Minister spoke about, in 2047, we will be the leading economy. It's predicted that our GDP will be $55 trillion. If you look at today, if you look at the price of oil going up by $10 is a negative 0.4% of GDP. It takes off 0.4. But if you look at the cost of disease and the disease burden, which could be $3 trillion because Indians are genetically predisposed to cardiac diseases, they're predisposed to strokes, they have now cancers rising at 20%. So unless we do the right research to make sure that we have our own APIs and integrate with what we have, which is really a lot of good practices from Ayurveda in keeping people healthy. I think this sort of research will really produce large-scale benefits, and we can look at a healthy India. So it's really, like he said, AI, aspirational India, using artificial intelligence, and using human intelligence from what we've learned in the past and bringing it all together, I'm sure will make a huge impact and at least save $3 to $5 trillion of our GDP.
Mr. Shriram, we cannot talk about disrupting industry without disrupting energy and the energy sector. There are many options. Green hydrogen is certainly one of them. But another interesting option which we thought we'd talk about is ethanol. Why is ethanol as a fuel something that you find attractive with a lot of future?
I think ethanol is what they call a green fuel because it's the energy source for that is the bagasse which comes from the sugarcane crop. So it's green fuel for one. Secondly, pollution levels are much lower than if one uses refining oil, etc., going through that route. And you can mix that directly with petrol as of now, and government is talking about doing it with diesel also. I think the positive side is that in the last 5 years, the government has moved very proactively in trying to push ethanol blending, which was 5-6 years ago in the range of 1 or 2%. Today it's almost 15%. And they want to take it up to 20%, which is a good direction to go to. In Brazil, etc., they are having 100% ethanol vehicles. So one can go to that extreme, but that requires a technology change on the automobile side also. But at least as moving forward, that's a positive direction to go to, which government is moving. They have just recently amended the policy where earlier on you could use only a type of molasses, C molasses, which could be used for making ethanol. But now they say you can use juice, you can use syrup, you can use B molasses, C molasses, anything. So that is really giving a push to ethanol. And that, firstly, as a cleaner fuel. Secondly, it reduces the import bill dramatically. I believe the import bill by the use of ethanol is already down by over 1 lakh crores a year, which is a very positive direction it's going towards. Government is now pushing where you can use broken rice, you can use maize, you can use wheat, you can use anything which has starch. So that can be converted to ethanol too. So that also is a positive way of looking at how to become more self-sufficient, how to have a cleaner fuel. Ultimately, end of the day, sustainability is an issue which needs focus and attention, and government is focused on that. Industry has to also get very aggressively onto it, which they are. But this is a direction where the government policy towards green fuel, green hydrogen similarly will be with green fuel.
Yeah.
The cost element of it is something which is at the moment government controlled. So we make ethanol. We sell it to the government at a predetermined price, which they calculate based on the sugarcane price, manufacturing cost, etc. So I think government is open and the policy is positive to move for blending more and more to make the fuel element for automobiles and for other vehicles cleaner than what it was day before yesterday.
Sure. Mr. Kalyani, when you sold your weapons, your gun systems and the like to Armenia, there must have been any number of competitors from the West saying you're buying from who? And how do you deal with that? Because it's a difficult industry. The competition is cutthroat, literally almost sometimes. So therefore, how do you convince people in markets who've never heard of India as being a defense manufacturer?
I think there are some prerequisites for this. First prerequisite is that in defense, whatever you produce, you must have the intellectual property for that. Because if you didn't have it, you won't be able to export it. That's the first prerequisite. The second prerequisite is it needs to be better than the best in the market. And that largely happens because, in our case, it's completely digital. You've got a little bit of AI, not too much, but completely digital, completely programmable. You can keep it 5 kilometers away and fire it in any direction you want, any number of them. Mm-hmm. So it's a product that's probably not made anywhere today on the planet. Although everybody is moving in that direction. But we also have a price point that it's very difficult for anybody to meet. For one simple reason, we control everything from the steel to the forging, to the heat treatment, to the machining, to computer systems and everything else. So that's a big advantage. But going forward, it's not just guns. India will make, at least I see the private sector making, large amount of products going forward, which are very sophisticated, high in technology, very high in terms of its digital and AI content, because our whole electronics industry is coming up. There's one thing that was lacking in this country in terms of building high-tech defense equipments, but I think in 5 years that problem will be over. I mean, I never thought 10 years ago that we could ever build an artillery gun in our plant.
Right.
But, today it's a reality. I mean, we are building 8 to 10 guns a month. So I think there's going to be many more things that are going to come. It's an industry that's going to generate technology, is going to generate capability in the country that's going to be used elsewhere. There's another offshoot that I'd like to say a little bit about. We talked about manufacturing and how the scale of manufacturing needs to be much higher. We need to grow 12x from where we are today. And it's not related only to automotive or, other things. But the primary thing in manufacturing, which Sunita talked about, is we need innovation. Without innovation, you cannot manufacture products. You take medical equipments. We hardly make medical equipments in this country, which we can truly call our own. So we need to innovate all these things. There are many areas where we don't make anything.
Right.
We are very happy with the GCGs, the engineering centers set up by multinationals here. But we shouldn't be very happy about it. We are happy about it because it provides jobs.
Sure.
But it's another form of colonialism.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I think we better learn to create technology on our own power.
No,
And that should be the dream of every Indian. Do it yourself. Do it for the country. Think of the country as a whole. That's the name of the game.
Ultimately, it's all about being happy, right? Mr. Kalyani is happy if he manufactures at a certain level of precision. You look at happiness from a holistic health standpoint. And when we were talking, I think yesterday or day before, you told me about the importance of setting up blue zones or areas where those who are elderly will be looked after in a more holistic fashion than perhaps exists right now, where spiritual healing would be part of healthcare as well. How is this in Apollo and for you a really big effort, one that stretches to a large percentage of our population? Is it financially viable?
You've given all the answers.
I have no answers, I'm asking the questions.
When you do something good, it's always financially viable. And that's my learning over the past 40 years. When you do something with a purpose, it always results in profits. But let's, for a moment, spend a minute on happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is that moment of metacognition when you realize, that what you have is sustainable. It's not like when you eat an ice cream and you're happy. It's about when you're in a state of good health, you are happy because, like they say, first you can't have wealth without health. You can't have happiness without health. So really being in that ideal state of health is important. Understanding that happiness comes from the sustainable things in life. You're happy when you are at a wedding. You're happy at a family wedding. You're happy when you're with your family. So these sustainable events are really important in happiness. And we had the Bhutan Prime Minister here. I'm sure he'll reinforce that. Professor Paul Romner spoke about the state in USA. When people are so pessimistic, a life expectancy is going down. It's a state of happiness that's important. And I think by, creating this confluence of spirituality, cultural centers, communities, providing them with good health, most important with nutrition, and then focusing on, and crucial is focusing on preventive healthcare for the young, as well as looking after the elderly. We need to do this. They've done this in Japan, in Okinawa, and there was a study on this. I believe it's time for India to do this because, we always talk about 250,000 Indians leaving India and $40 billion of wealth lost.
Right.
But this is probably the right time for us to do this not just outside of the urban centers, get 1,000 kilometers of land, set up these blue zones where we look at health, happiness, prevention, because we understand that, your first heart attack comes not when you're 60, but at 30 because you're not prepared for your lifestyle is wrong. Alzheimer's, you see it at 70, but it starts at 40. Therefore, you can control who you want to be at 50 or 60 or 70 if you control how you behave when you're 50 or when you're 30 or 40. So bringing together preventive healthcare, again Ayurveda, bringing communities together, looking after our elderly, I think quality of life is very important, and all this contributes to happiness. We've studied this in Apollo, we've not yet rolled it out, hopefully in the next decade.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you very much for being with us. When we're talking about disrupting industry, it has to be, holistic. It cannot be just manufacturing, it cannot just be healthcare, or it cannot just be agriculture. It has to be broad-based, and it has to be based on a vision. And I think the industry leaders that you have on our panel today are all world beaters in their own right, with an idea which may be uniquely Indian, but I think the takeaway for me from this session is that these are all ideas which could be globally applied. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.